What's up, everybody? This is Generation.
So we don't have Daryl. We just messed it all up.
We gotta get that on cue. What are we gonna talk about today, Carlos? Because today is a very important conversation to have.
Yeah. Well, today I'm gonna be going over some of the stories that I've been experiencing with applicants for some of the rentals that I have up on the market.
Okay. So you got a few rentals on the market right now.
Yes, we have units that are available, single-family homes that are available right now. Some of them are fully turned. Some of them are in decent shape. It is the beginning of February, so it's not necessarily the best season, but we do have, I think it's like three or four units
that are currently on Zillow or on
on Zillow.
What else do you post on? Just Zillow, Facebook?
Yeah, it's primarily Zillow.
Okay.
Yeah, we go with primarily Zillow first. There's a premier membership type of fee that you can pay in order for them to kind of boost your house on Zillow. So we pay for that, and then we get leads filtered through there. They can fill out applications, they can schedule appointments. But yeah, so we've been getting all of our stuff through there now.
Okay, and how many bedrooms is the average one that you have on the market? Are they all 2 bedrooms?
No, I would say 3-1 is probably the average. Yeah.
And are you still getting a lot of people that want to see it, want to view it, and a lot of emails?
Yeah, so I am. So probably on a weekly basis, we get maybe, 5 to 8 appointments I get scheduled for that week.
Okay.
I mean, so sometimes depending on how pressing or good they are as a prospect, we'll try to schedule them earlier in the week and give them, I won't say give them preference, but like their schedules are a bit more limiting, so that we kind of do that. But we primarily focus them around Fridays and Saturdays and do all the showings on those days
at once. So they all come at once.
Yeah,
and I'm sure half of them probably don't even show up.
Half of them don't show up. So I would call it, if we schedule 9, maybe 5 or 4 will show up. So about 50%.
That's how mine is too. Whenever, especially those Facebook leads, they never show up. In my opinion. Okay, so you're still getting a lot of people that do want to rent it.
Still getting a lot of people that are interested, but not a whole lot of applicants. And the applicants that we do receive aren't the best, most qualified applicants. So they won't necessarily even meet our requirements.
So do you think, so people are viewing it and they're just not applying? Do you think it's because that specific property isn't fixed up to their standard? Or do you think they just found another property? Because they obviously are looking. Or do you think it's out of their budget? Or do you think they get scared maybe when you tell them the credit report checks and all that? What do you think?
I think it's a couple of things. So we generally turn our units fully before we rent them out. 3 out of the 4 that we're looking to rent now aren't fully turned. So they either have base heating, or they don't have central, or there's like little things that haven't made the house fully modern. So those could be some drawbacks for the kind of rents that have been normal for Richmond for a long time. So we're still pursuing those kind of rents. So it might be our doing where we're kind of over pushing rent for the product that we're putting out.
Gotcha.
It could also be the time of the year, though, right? Where you're not seeing a whole lot of people out. I mean, obviously we are seeing a lot of people looking for places, but they're not the most qualified individuals. So they could be being kicked out because of evictions. They could be just moving into the area. They could be a multitude of reasons, but usually everybody's kind of moving in like April to like July, August, right?
Yeah.
So we're not getting those kind of tenants.
Yeah, so most people, their prior lease ends around April, May, June, July. So there's not many people, to Carlos's point, looking for a place in February, January, and December because it's cold. They don't want to move their stuff when it's cold. So you do get a little bit of less people to actually view the houses. So you think it might be because you're looking at 2021 pricing for your rentals maybe, and not going down a little? Have you lowered your rent price at all yet?
We haven't pushed down our rent prices at all, because we still feel like our rent prices are fair for what it is. We just think that it's the pool that's out there, the tenant pool.
Yeah.
We think that that's the main reason why we're not getting, because we could have gotten a few people into these houses, but some of the stories didn't add up, and I can go over some of those stories. But some of the stuff does not add up.
Let's hear one. Let's hear one of those horror stories.
Horror stories. All right. So in one situation, we had a lady who was pretty interested. I would say seriously interested. She had a good story. Didn't seem rushed. Wasn't really pushing the cash thing. So usually the typical red flags that you would see weren't being shown by by this individual. But what we started to catch that was slightly different is that we received all the pay stubs, we received offer letters, we received all of that, but we weren't receiving identification. So like a picture of their driver's license or whatever. So we didn't receive that. We're like, okay, they're interested, but we're not receiving it. When we started looking at pay stubs, when we started looking at offer letters and being a little bit more detailed about it, we started noticing that emails don't quite match up. And by match up, I mean like, I don't know, if you work for Giant and you're an HR director at Giant's Food or call it Kroger's Food, your email address is not hrkroger@gmail.com, right?
Yeah.
Like it's jsmith@kroger.com, right? Yeah. So stuff like that was not like they were like, yeah, call text my supervisor or email my supervisor, and it'll be like HR director at Kroger@gmail.com.
So they made a fake email just for that purpose. So do they not have a job? Like, well, or they weren't making enough or something?
No, I mean, we got pay stubs. But there are websites out there that they can generate their own pay stubs saying whatever amount that they make.
Wow, so this tenant went through the hassle of creating a whole new email, like Jace or Kroger GM, whatever, at hotmail.com, something like that, and told you to email them and say, or emailed them from fake email emailed you and said, hey.
No, that I could email that fake email address.
And then what about phone number? Did they give you a phone number?
Yeah.
And it was their friends or what?
And it was probably their friends.
Did you actually try and call them?
Yeah, we did call. And we didn't sound any alarms. We just called and spoke to the person, asked normal questions like we usually would.
Yeah.
Just to kind of see if anything was like any more sketchy things kind of came out of it. But once we saw that the pay stubs weren't quite lining up, and we were comparing it to some of our old ADP pay stubs, so we were doing that, and it was not the same.
So did you reach back out to that tenant and say, hey, this is not a real email with Kroger?
No. So we didn't make it obvious to the tenant that we knew.
Oh, really? Why is that? I would have been like,
no,
this is not yours.
We just don't want to put ourselves in a situation of retaliation.
Oh.
Yeah, because, I mean, we don't want them to feel like we're blacklisting them or we're going to tell all of our landlord friends or whatever. So we just kind of stayed quiet about it and told them that they were rejected. And they never replied.
Oh.
They never
so
called back.
Accepted the rejection.
Yeah. And, I mean, everything else lined up, but they just accepted
Their credit was good, too?
Yeah, the credit was good. So we pulled credit and everything.
Maybe it was a real email.
I doubt it. I highly doubt
it. Yeah, so guys, make sure you watch out for those fake emails. Fake prior landlords is a big one too. They'll give you their friend's number for Carlos to call, and it won't be their real landlord or their old landlord because their old landlord is not going to give them a good recommendation. Just a bunch of stuff like that always happens.
I would also like really press questions on the tenant, because if things aren't really to snuff, they're not going to want to answer the questions of their previous landlord, of where they work, or what their living situation is like, pets, how many kids, that kind of stuff. They'll try to avoid and kind of give you workarounds to the answers before they give you the real answer if they know that it's something that won't cause you to accept them.
Right.
So you have to be super careful about it. And the longer it takes, the less patience that they'll have. So honestly, sometimes it's better if you have a longer kind of like review period. Although sometimes you just kind of want to get people in and just get it done. Sometimes it's better just to kind of take a few more extra days or a couple extra days, review their documents, really take the effort to like call their previous landlord, verify things. I mean, we go through everything from verifying LinkedIn accounts to Facebook accounts to emails to do we have anybody in common with other landlords, because we're usually in similar circles. I mean, I've even made phone calls that know certain people that have been landlords with previous tenants. So, like, I don't not turn every stone to try to figure it out.
Yeah, and don't accept bad tenant. I would do what you're doing and wait for a good tenant instead of, him. If he were to freak out and just accept someone just to start getting the rent, eventually he'll probably have an eviction on his hands. So make sure you do wait for that good tenant. If it might not happen after a week or two. It may take a month or two for you to actually get a good tenant to apply. So I'd say just wait it out. Would you give that same advice?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I even have another story to kind of like prove the point that that's exactly what we're doing. Is we had a tenant who applied, everything checked out. She's a Section 8 tenant. Her rent was abated, so essentially the previous landlord just kind of was like, "Hey, we're not going to charge you any more rent, and just find a new place to go." And the reason that they did that was because the landlord failed the inspection twice, right? The Section 8 inspection that they do on a monthly basis. Now, on the surface, it looks like the landlord is the bad guy, right? Because the house, they're a slumlord. I mean, that's the first reaction, right? They're a slumlord. They didn't fix up the place to the highest quality to pass Section 8 inspections. And now all of a sudden they have to let this tenant live for free while she lives there to go out and start to look for a different place. Okay, so that was a story that we got. We were like, that sucks. The landlord is a slumlord, right? Is what we were piecing together. We called the Section 8 representative, and she verified that very same story. They failed the inspection twice, and the landlord abated rent.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, cool. But this person is still in Section 8, right? So we'll still be able to place her, and she'll only have to come out of pocket $200. And I mean, if she's a good tenant, she could have been a really good tenant, and if the place was just really bad,
right?
Then it sucks, right? Like, we want to place her if we can, and she's Section 8, the money is guaranteed. Everything would work out. But when we looked into a little bit more, and we had a correspondence with the previous landlord.
Okay.
So we essentially got a release of information from the previous tenant. So from one landlord to the next, you can ask, hey, was this previous tenant or your current tenant, were they late on any of the rents? Were they, would you rent to them again? How many occupants were on the lease? I mean, you can ask a lot of different questions, and you can pose those questions. You have to be careful about how you pose them, but you can propose a bunch of different questions, and it's up to that current landlord to answer them truthfully and responsibly, right? So they did, and there was a couple of questions in there about how far they behind on rent and how many months they've been late. And that's where we started to like piece more things together. So we recognized by the answers that she had been late 7 times.
So late on her portion, because Section 8 pays a percent, and then
Correct.
she has to pay the rest.
Correct. So she was supposed to pay her portion, but was late 7 times.
Okay.
So then we looked at how much she was behind, and we did the math. And her portion times 7 times late.
Oh, she fees, never paid. She still never paid
for 7 months. Portion. Even though she was abated, even before that, she hadn't paid for 7 months. So then we started piecing the things together.
And did she tell you that when you called her?
No, it's a property management.
Yeah, but when you talked to her though, did she claim that she was behind?
No.
Oh.
No. So that was the form that the landlord filled out.
Yeah.
So then I just got curious at that point things just aren't adding up, and we're seeing a pattern. We're seeing why maybe the landlord is like, you know what, we're throwing up the flag. Like, this lady doesn't want to pay. We just need to get her out somehow, right? So I ended up having the idea to Google. I would encourage everybody to Google your prospective tenant. I Googled her, and she's been on 12 by Your Side, and she blasted another landlord. Not the landlord she was with, but she had blasted another landlord, her previous landlord, over some other stuff.
Wait, what's 12 by Your Side? Did you say
it's just a
news network. Okay.
News network. So she had blasted another landlord, and then she was putting this landlord through the rigmarole. So it was only a matter of time before it hit us if we weren't careful. So that's just a warning sign for everybody who's looking for tenants. If things start to get a little rough, be patient and trust your gut. Do your due diligence. Take it easy, slow, ask good questions, and always Google people.
Wow. So you Googled the tenant that was applying, and then one of the first headlines on Google saying, this landlord accuses, or I mean, this tenant accuses landlord of XXXX, and
Yep.
she's like literally doing an interview of why her landlord is treating her unfairly.
Yep, in Richmond, Virginia, and the name is spelled the same, and it was one of the addresses that was on her previous places.
You want to watch out, because you definitely don't want one of those tenants, because that's the same very thing. Even though you might take the best care of that tenant, they could still go out and find something, or they could just be headaches and then threaten to always go to the news and try and blast you.
Yeah.
So
So I would take it
advice.
easy. Yeah, I would take it easy. Take your time. Sometimes it sucks, but if you place a good tenant, they can be there for 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah.
And you slowly increase their rent. I would definitely always either include it in your lease or always annually increase their rent, a small portion, because you don't want to go 2, 3 years without increasing rent. Then on the 4th year, they've been great tenants, but all of a sudden they feel like, oh, you're going to get them.
Yeah.
Right? You increase their rent $100, $100, and they're like,
yeah.
You know, and then they want to threaten to leave, and it's like, you've done nothing wrong. Insurance and taxes have gone up. Everything has gone up. So you need to charge a little bit more.
Yeah. And I always try and keep mine a little bit before, if I'm raising rents, a little bit below market. So if the house is renting for $2,000, I'll raise them up to like 19, like let's say from 18 to
right
19.
under.
Yeah, that way they don't feel the urge to be like, I could get this place for, $2,000. I'll just move here and it's a little bit better. So that's
a good
what I
point.
like to do.
So I forgot who pointed this out, and it was a nice point that they made, that when they're looking to increase rents, if they haven't so in a while, they'll go to Zillow. Some people have reservations about Zillow, but that's where like most of the non-real estate people will go, is they'll go to Zillow and look at what Zillow rent says, right? So they'll go to that, and if Zillow rent says that your unit should be renting for $1,500, and your current rent is $1,300, if you go over $1,500, they're gonna feel like they're getting robbed.
Yeah.
Right. So
you're talking about the rent Z estimate, or are you talking about rental comps?
Yeah, rent Z.
Okay.
Estimates. Yeah. So
because the tenant will look at that.
They'll look at that. They'll be uninformed, but they'll look at that as like, the indicator of what rent should be, even though it could be totally inaccurate.
Yeah.
But they'll look at that in their misinformation. They'll look at that and gauge rent should be at that price.
Yeah, I guess it's the same thing when people go and sell their houses. They see the Z estimate and say like, no, I could easily get this. That's what Zillow says.
Exactly.
And then the realtors are just like, no, you can't get that.
No.
A similar situation.
Yeah.
So make sure you screen your tenants. It could be a tough time. It could take a while to actually get some good tenants in there. And make sure you treat them right once they're in there. And make sure they don't go to the news. Channel 10 News.
Be careful. Due diligence before. There's a lot more work that goes up front so that you don't have a shitty situation on the back end. So,
all right. And don't forget to subscribe.
Like, comment. If you have a crappy story, put it down below.
Yeah, we'll bring you on through our live webcam. We're upgrading our equipment. So, we got some mics.
Mics.
All right. And that's it. Generation H.